Hey, what's up, guys? Hope everybody's doing well and having a great day. Over here at an article by CNN.com dated August 20th of 2022 talking about the world's rivers are drying up from extreme weather. And they are indeed, at least some of them are shrinking. We've been talking about Lake Mead for quite some time. Lake Mead is doing something extraordinary that we're going to come back and take a look at here in just a moment. We're also going to come back and take a look at some of these rivers around the world that are shrinking. And I use the word shrinking because the water has to be going somewhere else. I mean, this river used to go from this tree line over here all the way over to this tree line over here. The water of the earth goes through a perpetual water cycle, and this has been going on for millions of years. And right now, the water cycle is intensifying. Water cycles through the environment, moving between the atmosphere, ocean, land, and reservoirs of frozen water. It might fall as rain or snow, seep into the ground, run into a waterway, join the ocean, freeze, and then evaporate back into the atmosphere. Plants also take up water from the ground and release it through transpiration from their leaves. In recent decades, there has been an overall increase in the rates of precipitation and evaporation. And looking at this little model right here, you can see the water cycle as trees harbor water, and all the plants in the ecosystem harbor a certain amount of water they have to survive. Grass, and then it evaporates, goes up into the clouds, comes down from the clouds as rain, forms rivers, lakes, and reservoirs. The rivers are simply shrinking. Some of the reservoirs are shrinking, but we're seeing flooding in other parts of the world. That doesn't necessarily mean the water has disappeared from the face of the earth. It's just moving locations. We just saw 16 inches of rain in a very short amount of time over in the Dallas area. There's flooding in Pakistan. There's flooding in the Sudan. There's flooding in India. Here's an example of the floods in India that have just recently occurred within the last 96 hours. Unbelievable monsoon flooding in Pakistan where thousands of people have been displaced. So it's not just drought that we're seeing in the northern hemisphere. We're also seeing floods as well. But I will say some of the larger rivers in the northern hemisphere are shrinking and quite drastically. We're going to look at some of these reservoirs and rivers from space. This is a 22-year span. This is the Colorado River, and you can see how a lot of it has indeed disappeared. That is quite a dramatic difference from 2022 to the year 2000. Coming down here to Lake Mead, this is also 2022 to the year 2000. Going back in time, you can see how much it's shrank in the last 22 years. This area here is over in China, and along this river, they've had to close down power plants because the river has gotten so shallow. And this goes back a year from 2022 to 2021, so not quite as dramatic of a difference there, but you can see a difference. The river has shrunk in size, and this is the Rhine River that runs through Germany, and you can see from 2022 to 2021, there's quite a different scene going on here. Even the ground looks drier. There's much more brown on both sides of the river, and both of these images are from August of 2021 and 2022, but look at the difference between the years, and you can also notice a difference up here. The ground on both sides of the river is much drier, much browner, and you'll notice the same thing here. This is the River Po in Italy, 2021 to 2022. Notice the ground again on both sides of the river, very brown. It just looks parched. And here's 2021 when the river was running pretty strong just about 12 months ago, and there's been quite a drastic difference in 12 months. Over here in France, we talked about this river the other day. You're looking at 2021, now 2022, everything looks brown. The river has shrunk exponentially. In fact, this area here is another part of the world where power plants are very much dependent on the flow of water through that very river. Here's yet another location. This is the Danube in Romania. You're looking at 2021 and 2022. You can see how much smaller it is between the 2 years, and again, much browner on both sides of the river. And speaking of the Danube, it's so low that the river is revealing World War II ships that have been covered by water for decades, and now the water is so low, some of these World War II ships are starting to be revealed, at least the hulls of some of these very large ships, and there's more than just one. From what I understand, there's several of these ships right here in this location, and that would be this location right here. And those ships that were once underwater are right here in this area, or at least some of the ships are. And now we're seeing the ships, and we're also seeing sandbars that are growing by the day as the rivers are getting smaller and smaller in some parts of the world. And again, in other parts of the world, it's the exact opposite. We're seeing an imbalance in the ecosystem. We're seeing extreme droughts, and we're seeing parts of the world experiencing extreme floods. Coming over to Lake Mead that I mentioned earlier, Lake Mead is doing the impossible. It's been shrinking for several months now on end. But as you can see over here at the Lake Mead Water Database, we check in over here almost on a daily basis, or at least I do. I may not report it in a video, but I check on it every single day. And notice the green, solid green. For the last 14 days in a row, there's been an increase in the overall water content at the Lake Mead Reservoir. This is unprecedented. It has not done anything like this in a long, long time. And what's been causing the increase in the overall water capacity is a decrease in the outflow. It's been anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 yesterday, with the inflow being greater than the outflow, which creates a positive change. However, that's not the case up at Lake Powell. It continues to shrink. It shrank 13 out of the last 14 days, and the larger outflow compared to a much smaller inflow is creating a negative change at Lake Powell. So Lake Powell is shrinking. Lake Mead is gaining water. But remember, Lake Powell is what feeds Lake Mead. And here's a look at the Colorado River one more time. You're looking at 22 years between 2022 and the year 2000. That's how much water has disappeared from the Colorado River. And then here's Lake Mead once again right here. They don't show Lake Powell in this example. Lake Powell, I'm going to take you guys to Lake Powell and show you where Lake Powell is with regard to Lake Mead. We're going to come over here to Google Earth, and we'll go to Lake Powell. So here we are. Here's Lake Powell on Google Earth. Right over here is Lake Mead. So here's how the water flows out west. It goes from Lake Powell to Lake Mead, but Lake Powell is also fed by the Colorado River. Colorado River runs through Lake Powell, which itself is huge, and then the water goes through the Grand Canyon and over into the Lake Mead Reservoir. But again, Lake Mead's success depends on Lake Powell's success, and as long as Lake Powell is shrinking, Lake Mead can only increase for a certain amount of time, because Lake Powell is steadily decreasing and has been for a long, long time. They have not reversed the outflows and inflows yet. That doesn't mean that they can't, but still, I think at the end of the day, it all depends on the success of the Colorado River. And if the Colorado River is indeed shrinking, which we all know it is, the water is disappearing. It's moving somewhere else. So we're seeing a lot of rivers around the world, especially in the northern hemisphere, become very dry, so dry that in some cases they're revealing ships from World War II that have not been seen in many, many decades. But there are also areas around the world that we're seeing extreme flooding. So we're in a time of extremes where we're seeing extreme drought and we're seeing extreme rainfall. So it looks like we need to find that balance, that golden mean, as we are seeing flooding in areas around the world, not just droughts like we're seeing in some areas that are quite extreme. We're seeing rivers shrink to levels that they've never been before, at least in recorded history. Coming over here to the homepage of the website, today's feature photo was sent by Jared out of Heber, Utah. Looks like this valley here was filled full of gold. Coming over here to nullschool.net, looking at the Sahara sand situation, starting to thin out just a little bit for the time being. So don't be surprised if we see a hurricane form out here in the Atlantic Ocean. The conditions out here are becoming more favorable for the formation of hurricanes. So wouldn't surprise me here within the next week, maybe 10 days, if there wasn't some hurricane activity out here in the Atlantic Ocean, maybe in the southern Caribbean, quite possibly moving up into the Gulf of Mexico. If you guys have any photos you'd like to share, you can send those to reports at mrmbb333.com. And if you guys have any videos you'd like to share that will not attach to the email, you can come over here to the homepage of the website, click on this red tab, and simply drag and drop your video into that red tab. Please include your first name, location, and the date. Thanks for watching. Have a super day, and be safe out there.